The Vikings reached North America 500 years before Columbus. But did you know they also sailed to Britain, Spain, Italy, Russia, North Africa, the Middle East, and Paris? Welcome to this video delivered to you by History Insight. This is the story of the Viking Age. The Vikings, also known as Norsemen, were a group of seafaring warriors, traders, and settlers who emerged from the Scandinavian region in the late 8th century. They were a diverse group of people who played a major role in shaping the history of Europe and the wider world during the Viking Age, which lasted from the late 8th century to the 11th century. The Viking Age is often considered to have begun in year 703 with the raid on the Abbey of Lindisfarne, a tidal island off the northeast coast of England. This event sent shockwaves throughout the Christian world and marked the start of a period of widespread Viking raids along the coastlines of Britain and Ireland. The Vikings were known for their sudden and unexpected raids, in which they would appear out of nowhere, wreak havoc, and then leave or remain and take control. Their reputation for brutality and martial prowess was well earned, but their religion was also a significant aspect of what made them so feared. As pagans, the Norsemen had no compunction with destroying and looting churches or monasteries. The Vikings were not just raiders, however. They were also farmers, mercenaries, explorers, and settlers. They established settlements in many parts of Europe, including the Danelaw in England, Normandy in France, and the Kievan Rus in Eastern Europe. Their reach extended even farther, with Norsemen under Leif Erikson crossing the Atlantic in the early 11th century and establishing a settlement in North America 500 years before Columbus. The Vikings also explored and settled the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and Greenland. These settlements were not only limited to the western part of the continent, but also the Eastern Europe, where they established the Kievan Rus, which is the direct precursor to modern-day Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. One of the reasons for the Vikings' success was their ships, which had shallow drafts and could be rowed up rivers, allowing them to reach even settlements far from the coast. This made them a formidable and terrifying force, as demonstrated by the Viking raid on Paris in 845 and the establishment of the Viking leader Rollo in Normandy in 911. The Vikings also ventured down the Rhine, well into modern-day Germany, and settled there. This enabled them to overrunning Western Europe. Vikings were also known for their seafaring skills and innovations in shipbuilding, which allowed them to travel far and wide. They were able to navigate the brutal seas of the Atlantic, the Baltic, and the Black Sea. They also traveled extensively in the Baltic, going all the way to its eastern shores. The defining and lasting symbol of the Viking Age is the longship, which was specially designed for the Vikings' needs and had shallow drafts, fierce carvings, and the ability to navigate rivers. These longships were known as dragon ships in Europe and were a sight that struck terror into all those who saw them. It is also important to note that the Vikings were not just a homogeneous group of people, but rather a diverse group of individuals with different backgrounds and cultures. They came from various parts of Scandinavia, including Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, and each of these regions had their own distinct cultures and customs. The Vikings also interacted with and were influenced by the cultures of the places they visited and settled. This is evident in the various artifacts and structures they left behind, such as the Viking-inspired architecture in Ireland, the influence of Arabic and Byzantine art on Viking art, and the blending of Norse and Slavic cultures in the Kievan Rus. The Vikings were not just raiders and warriors, but also traders and entrepreneurs who were able to adapt and assimilate to different cultures. First as pirates and merchants, and then as settlers and mercenaries, these Eastern Vikings became known as the Varangians. The Varangians established a kingdom of their own in Eastern Europe, eventually merging with the local Slavic peoples to form the Kievan Rus. They had traveled down rivers like the Dnieper to the Black Sea, settling around its shores or fighting as mercenaries for the Georgian king. In the 11th century, they even crossed the Caspian Sea, raiding places in modern-day Azerbaijan and Iran. The Vikings also had a significant presence in the Byzantine Empire, where they were known as the Varangians. They initially attacked and raided Byzantine territories, but eventually formed an alliance with the empire. The Byzantine Emperor Basil I created the Varangian Guard in the year 988, an elite military unit consisting of Varangians from the Kievan Rus and later recruits from Scandinavia. The Varangian Guard fought under Byzantine emperors in various parts of the empire, including the Balkans, Palestine, Armenia, Italy, the Arabian Peninsula, Central Asia, and Egypt. The Vikings also ventured south, capturing and ransoming the king of Pamplona in the Iberian Peninsula in year 859 and raiding the coasts of North Africa and Italy. In the 11th century, Norse mercenaries took part in the Norman conquest of Sicily. These seafaring journeys were accomplished in ships like the Longship, which were specially designed for the Vikings' needs and had shallow drafts, fierce carvings, and the ability to navigate rivers. The Vikings were also known for their seafaring skills and innovations in shipbuilding, which allowed them to travel far and wide. They were able to navigate the brutal seas of the Atlantic, the Baltic, and the Black Sea. They also traveled extensively in the Baltic, going all the way to its eastern shores. The defining and lasting symbol of the Viking Age is the Longship, which was specially designed for the Vikings' needs and had shallow drafts, fierce carvings, and the ability to navigate rivers. These longships were known as dragon ships in Europe and were a sight that struck terror into all those who saw them. Despite their reputation for brutality and violence, the Vikings also made significant contributions to art, literature, and culture. They were skilled metalworkers and produced intricate jewelry, weapons, and other decorative items. They also left behind many runestones and other artifacts that provide insight into their beliefs and way of life. In conclusion, the Vikings were a complex and diverse group of people who left a lasting impact on the history and culture of the world. They were not just pillagers, but also farmers, mercenaries, explorers, traders, and settlers. Their seafaring skills and innovations in shipbuilding allowed them to travel far and wide, and their raids and settlements had a significant impact on the history and culture of Europe and beyond. They were known for their martial prowess and seafaring skills, but also for their contributions to art, literature, and culture. Even though the Viking Age officially ended in the 11th century, their legacy lives on through the many artifacts and structures they left behind, and their influence can be seen in the languages, place names, and cultures of the regions they once visited and settled. The Viking Age was a tumultuous time, but it also brought about many changes and advancements that continue to shape the world we know today. We hope you enjoyed this brief insight into the history of the Vikings and their impact on the world. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more content on history and other interesting topics. Thank you for watching.